The real change in the Clinton administration was he was pushed by the Republicans in Congress to lower capital gains taxes in 1997. That's when the economy took off. That's when the economy took off. And if you take a look at the accomplishments, welfare reform, actually ending our budget deficit, bringing us temporarily into surplus, those Gingrich revolutionaries accomplished that. So I do give credit to the people who made the revolution last time, and I think the crucial element to the people who will make the revolution this time is that old cliche of holding their feet to the fire, keeping at it, keeping involved. You can't just be involved between elections, you've got to be involved during legislative sessions as well.
Question over here.
Hi, my name is Jenga Roberts, and lift this up here. And I taught world religions in Massachusetts and also Euclidean geometry. And the reason why I mention the two is I am warning against cliche religion and cliche politics. Euclidean geometry requires you to think. And if we're going to be successful politically, and if we're going to reform any religious faith, we have to have a reason. We have to think and just not say cliches. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Daniel.
Every single day, there are Americans in Iraq, they're still there, and there are Americans in Afghanistan who risk their lives depending on the idea that reformist Muslims are your brothers. There are people in the Afghan forces, there are people in the Iraqi forces who are fighting side by side with our people. And again, the proposition that Islam itself is core evil and unreformable, frankly, that proposition can undermine the safety of our troops. And that's one of the reasons I think it's so important to honor what Steve was saying here.
Thank your sons for their service as well for us. That's a great, and we will, early voting, you betcha, it has an enormous understated effect on both money, polling, and it's like a double vote when you vote early.
And I'd like for you to speak, possibly all of you, about losing our sovereignty to the United Nations, especially in the situation with Arizona and the border. And I'd also like to say that there's still hope that my people will wake up. I want to say that it took me so many years to realize that I'm an American and not an African American. And I dropped that fight about 3 months ago. And I thought you white people were crazy when you said, why do you call yourself an African American? And, you know, I'm a praying woman, and, you know, God said to me one day, you don't like for anybody to put labels on you and put you in a box. Why are you doing it to yourself? So I'm proud to be an American, and I just happen to be black. But if you would answer that, I would really appreciate it.
Have you noticed that President Obama dropped his entire attack? I mean, just dropped it like a hot potato, his entire attack on the Arizona law. Have you heard him say anything about it? And the reason is he can read the polls. And this is, there is no question that regardless of how people feel about some of the deeper issues in immigration, like what happens ultimately to the 10.8 million people who are here illegally right now, what everyone agrees on is border security. Everyone agrees on that. And border security means, yes, you're entitled to have a border. And no, we do not want the United Nations taking over our sovereignty. We want no compromise in our sovereignty because America is exceptional and will always be exceptional. Let me mention one thing that's exceptional about our country and our party right now. At the moment, there are 12 nominees, people nominated by the Republican Party for the Congress of the United States who are African American, who are black. The largest coalition, the largest group of black Republicans in the Congress of the United States since Reconstruction. The party of Lincoln and Frederick Douglass is going back to its roots.
Thank you, Luna. Last 3 questions.
Can I just answer one
Go ahead,
thing?
Steve.
There is something to your question about sovereignty, at least with regards to the United Nations and to the Organization of Islamic Conference. The OIC is an organization of 57 states and affiliates that subscribe to the notion about Islam being an ummah as a part to being separate states. And one of their provisions that this administration has signed on to is to enact blasphemy laws, that is to criminalize criticism of Islam. This is so dangerous to our country, to our principles, to our values, in the same way that this administration has also joined the Human Rights Council in Geneva that is chaired by Libya and also has Syria as a member. And we are enabling these countries to exercise sovereignty inside of our own borders to the point that it'll come to the point that our own generals and our own politicians may be sued or may be indicted, and they will not be allowed to travel to various countries as they've done to the Israeli government. And I am afraid that with the agreement to the proposal by the OIC that this administration has agreed to, and that nobody has really opposed in the Democratic administration in Congress, is very dangerous. And these are issues that need to be explored, need to be advertised, because we are in danger. I do believe that if we sign up to these types of initiatives, we will lose our sovereignty.
Denny, I have to ask Steve a question because I just do. The strategic defeat that was suffered when the Washington State cartoonist was told by the FBI to go into hiding. I'm still reeling from it. There's no time to talk about it right now because of the election. But that was a strategic defeat. That was a massive, and the FBI said run away. What was your reaction to that?
Mayor, I spoke to the FBI. The interesting story here is that the FBI special agent in charge in Seattle wanted to tell her that she was under threat, but it came from classified information, so FBI Washington did not allow him to tell her that, and he broke the law, actually, in telling her that she was under threat before it became public. There's no law that gives the U.S. government the right, the appropriations, to protect private citizens from terrorist threats. Number two is, the lesson learned here is that nobody else is going to do what this cartoonist did. And so there's going to be an implicit sense of self-censorship, the way the Metropolitan Museum of Art pulled its exhibition on Islam, not because there was a threat, because they anticipated a threat. In the same way Yale University pulled the cartoons out of a book on Danish cartoons, not because there was a threat. And this is happening, you can't document it, but you know, reporters and writers are going to hide, they're going to stop writing, and this is a major threat on our First Amendment, and this has to stop, and we have to stand up to it. And the FBI and this administration, I am sorry to say that Obama didn't say anything about this. He should have stood up to the threats against this woman and said, we will not tolerate this. We will not tolerate threats against anybody who speaks out freely in a democratic society.